G'day viewers, my name's Graeme Stevenson and I'd like to invite you to come on a journey of creativity and learning and adventure through the series Colour in Your Life. There's an artist in every family throughout the world, and lots of times there's an artist deep down inside all of us as well. So grab your kids, your brothers, your sisters, your aunties, uncles and mums and dads and come and see how some of the best artists in Australia do what they do. Well, g'day viewers and welcome back to Colour in Your Life and welcome to my studio. Over the last couple of months I've had a number of people ask me if I would do some more lessons, and we're going to do that today. I'm going to take you through a process that's actually quite technical. It takes quite a while to put these particular images together. We're screening one up right now, which is the actual image that I've created from this particular piece here. We're going to go through the process of how I do this. This is actually inside of the St Paul's Cathedral. One of my themes is the Nautilus shell, the mathematics of nature. But I'm going to show you how we go through this on another piece. This is just an example that we've got here that I've used. If you change a lot of these images that you say get off the web, if you take your own photos, which the next shot is of one of my particular photos that was taken in Brisbane, but if you do use any images off the web, you have to be aware of copyright. If you change the image at least 30%, you can avoid any of the copyright positions that will come up, obviously, with photographers and people that do these things. But I want to take you into my other room where I prepare all of this on my printer and my computers. You don't have to have one of these by any means. You can take your own photos and then have them blown up at a copy place just about anywhere in the country. And you can follow through the process that we're going to do. But come into the office with me and I'll show you how all this happens. Okay, in the office. Now what I normally use, I mean everybody's got their own cameras of course, but I've got the Canon EOS here, which just really does a great job. If you're a photographer, admittedly you need great stuff. But simply for taking photographs to reproduce for your art, because there's a lot of artistic license involved in it, you don't necessarily need a great camera, but a good camera will suffice. As you can see, I mean, I do work a lot with technology with what I do. Obviously I've got my PC, my Mac, I've got the RIP, which is the raster image processor, and then I have the 9600 Epson that I actually use to print a lot of these things out. From there, I'll take the images that I've taken, either the ones that I've actually taken or the ones from the web, demonstration purpose for today. And from here I'll actually take them into a thing called the RIP share, and I've got a couple of images here that I'm just going to pull directly into the RIP share, DSC, and this one here, which are the insides of cathedrals and mosques and synagogues, all of those pictures that I'm actually doing for really about architecture and nature, and how the mathematics really works for all particular things in this world. I mean, there are mathematics that work for everything on the planet. Sounds bizarre. And from here, I literally slide across to the next computer and I'll go through the process of fixing that up for the printer. Okay, well I've prepared the two images. I've actually put them to the size of the watercolour paper that I wanted to use. You can sort of put them into any size you want. As I said, if you go to any copy place, they can do this for you. And what I do now is I push print now, and from here it's going to go through the system and start to talk to this guy right here. Okay viewers, as you can see I've actually printed this particular image off. Now this was the one, and it was just a demonstration there to show you the process that we go through. You didn't need to sit there and watch that printer all day, I can assure you. But what I've done is I've actually made a start on this guy here, and what I did, particularly when they get quite complicated, and it's well and good sort of working out how to do perspective, which hopefully most of you know. But what I did with it is that I used an old technique, and we use plenty of techniques, is that I actually just coloured in the back of this with a 3B or a 2B. 6B is a bit light, but a 2B and a 3B tend to push into the paper a little bit more. And I went along into the process of, I'll just put this up here. So what I did with this one is, as I've done with the others, except for the wildlife or the fairly natural ones in the streams and the creeks that you've seen me do, is that because perspective is actually quite difficult, I've obviously just literally penciled in on the back of this to get where I wanted to go. And then what I did is I just put it on my watercolour sheet. I've actually just pinned it down with a little bit of masking tape. If you want to be a real purist on that one, you can soak it in a tub for an hour and then pull it out and then use the tape itself. But because of this particular technique, that I'm actually blocking in smaller areas all the way through in comparison to doing large washes. These are very controlled, as you can see, very, very controlled. And you can see what I use is I use a B pencil or even a H pencil, which is hard enough. Obviously put this over the area where you want it to go, and then using your B pencil or your H pencil is take a ruler and literally draw the whole picture all the way through. Saves a hell of a lot of time, and you don't have to sit down there and work out the perspective either. What I also do, as you know, because I put this marvellous piece of natural machinery in a lot of my work, the Nautilus shell represents all of the mathematics, the Fibonacci sequence. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that at all. Go in, look it up. It's quite fascinating that the mathematics that we use on a general basis is the mathematics that actually fits into all of the natural world. And this guy actually represents that quite well, using the ratio of 1 to 1.618. And also the Fibonacci sequence, which gives us the various areas within the shell. Once again, a lot of the masters used to paint this way also, but I think that these creatures, and particularly seashells, are quite fascinating. Hence, I put them into my pictures, or a number of the current pictures I'm doing, particularly with the architecture, particularly the architecture from the Renaissance periods, you know, going back to medieval. Knowing or unknowing, they did use a lot of these natural mathematics in those buildings because it's the most strongest way that nature can put these particular shapes together. And I love the fact that I can juxtapose the creativity of man with the natural world itself. And I've slid the Nautilus shell in there, and simply all I did with this guy, and it's always good if you can actually work off pieces themselves, if you can get animals. I used to paint a lot of birds and animals, so I did taxidermy as well, and I was always probing around inside different creatures to find out how they actually worked, which is quite fascinating on its own. But I put this into the picture, and from there, with all of these other natural, architectural, mathematical places, I've actually placed this guy in the same as I did with the first really detailed one you saw, and went through the process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I'm not going to finish this obviously in the day, you'll actually see it finished as we go through, as we do in this series. But I'm going to show you a couple of the processes of blocking in these various areas. I'm also going to show you on this particular piece, which is what I did on that really large dynamic one, is how to gold leaf. And it's just something that I love to do because it really brings out certain aspects of my pictures and the way that they work in. I mean, gold being the purest metal that we have, or one of them. To make up this natural world of nature and architecture combined. So let's go and have a look at some of the paints, and I'll show you how to do these really confined washes. Make sure your water's always clean. So you actually, this colour here is really the sandy or the sandstone colour that I mixed up for the blocks themselves. Now my brushes, always see if you can get a good tip on the end of your watercolour brushes. It really does help to really soak that water up. But as you can see by the Dale Rowney I've got here, it's number 30, but nice and thick. There are some really fabulous watercolour brushes you can get, but this one will hold the paint and the water, but also enable you to get a nice tip on it as well. And then the same, I've got some Roy Mac brushes here as well. So they all do the job as far as, and you can pretty well paint this whole picture just with these guys here. So, pretty well done, as you can see. It doesn't take long to block all this, and if you're doing that with oil paints, you'd have to do each individual section. But this one, I'm just going to block in these guys. So with very little watercolour, you can see that I'm actually covering quite a large area and just working in between where I've done all my outlines around there. You can just simply see that it's just a pencil drawing of what was on this guy here. Areas like this, I mean, as I said, they can get quite complex, but I've got just about all of what I need down there to tell me where else I need to go. So all I'm doing is mapping in what I can see. Okay, from here I'm going to show you how to put gold leaf onto watercolour painting. And this really gives a really dramatic effect. If you look at a lot of the old cathedrals, buildings, whatever they are, they'll have actually used real gold leaf inside them. But what happens when you use the gold leaf in conjunction with a picture like this? Now this wall does not have gold leaf on it. I'm going to do it on purpose. It's called artistic license. But it really adds a three-dimensional effect to the picture, particularly if a viewer or a client, investors looking at your work and they're moving around the room. It really makes the painting pop. And even in those other really complex perspective pieces, it looks like you're looking straight through the room. It's really quite bizarre. If you put on 3D glasses, the whole thing looks completely three-dimensional. It's really quite amazing. But what I have here is I have a thing called gold size. And the gold size needs to go down first if you are to do this successfully. There are various forms of size that you can use, but this one suits me just fine. You don't want to shake the bottle up too much because you're going to get a lot of bubbles in there. You get too many bubbles in it, they're going to bubble on the top of this little Winsor & Newton brush. And what I do is I'm just going to do the outliners or the outside areas of these particular pictures by just putting on enough paint there to start with, but just simply by doing these edges. Now the gold size is really like a liquid rubber, and you simply put it down right to the edges of where you want this to go. I mean, they do have a thing called masking fluid that is different to this, that you can actually put down and peel off. Looks very much the same, but the gold size will actually stick to the board itself or the paper, as in this case, and mostly used for watercolours on watercolour paper. I'm actually doing this on Arches 300, which is a great watercolour paper to use. As you can see, it goes on fairly easily, and it does leave, you can get a reasonably good edge with it all the way through. Careful not to drop any on the picture if you can. And as you can see, by putting this down, you can understand that there is a huge amount of work that goes into even just putting the gold leaf down, because it's literally like you're painting the picture twice and then you have to overlay it with the gold as well. So this should take about probably about 15 minutes to dry, and it's normally just very tacky. If you cannot, one thing that you cannot do is you can't put this down and not have it completely dry and then try and put the gold leaf on top, because it just will not work. It will destroy the picture quite quickly. So this has to be bone dry. You know, you're better off leaving it go for an hour or so before you even think about putting any gold leaf on it at all. So I'll continue to do this and we'll come back in a little while. So what I've got here is I've got some gold leaf, which as you can see is absolutely marvellous to look at. I've got a brush in my hand here that's an old brush, but it's still fairly soft, but it's got a fairly strong, sort of dried at the bottom. I'm going to use that to pick up and try and not get, your hands have to be reasonably clean for this as well. If your fingers are oily on this, it'll actually stain the gold, so you really have to have fairly clean hands as well. I'm going to roll this little bit out here, tear that off there, leave the rest. Can't do it in the wind, so even if you even think of having the window open, you might as well forget about the whole thing. And what I've just done is I've just placed it, I'm just going to dab this on here like so. You can actually see that it's actually taking directly in to where the actual size has been, and then all I do, just pat it down nicely with that. As I said, try not to use your finger. Pat it down, you'll see that it's a beautiful effect there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the end of the brush just to push this edge along like so, and what it does is it actually breaks that corner there, and I've got enough to come up to the next one. I just gently place it on and just softly with the tip of that brush. And then what I can do is I'll go around and do the whole lot and follow me all the way around. But what I do then is wherever the size is, as I said, and then what I do is I push that edge there, and voila, one gold edge. Now what I'm going to do is, as you can see, there's darker areas in here, and I need to reform the structure that's going through my whole picture. So from there, what I do is I get one of my smaller brushes. Okay, I'm going to take some of my darker mixture and just mix it, get the spray bottle again, and I'm going to mix a little bit of that black. I pull into this area here and then roll it around a bit because I really need a lot of pigment, and I'm going to literally drop it straight down, and you'll actually see, because it's so much thicker and darker, it'll actually stain the gold. If it's not thick and it's not almost a dry formula that you've got there, it just simply won't work. So I can pull that down, it's a little bit thicker than that, but you can see that that colour's gone directly over the gold. And very dry, it's very, very dry mixture. I'll add a little bit more of the brown in there just to come into this lighter area. And then I'm going to pull it down into here. And as you can see, these are techniques that are very precise. They take, to do a painting like this will take some days to complete, but I will be photographing it as I go along so that you guys can see the progression. But you can see with that gold and the shine of the gold, it really does start to give you quite a wonderful three-dimensional effect. I'm going to be working with a lot of the artists that we have had in the series because of the inquiries for the workshops. If you want to know how to do these, and I've been taught, luckily enough, in my travels throughout the world by some quite amazing people, you're most welcome to get in touch with us about the workshops. We have a number of people that have phoned, and we're just getting all of that ready right now, but and we hope to do them in the various cities across the country as well. Okay, what I'm going to do before we finish up today is I'm going to do one more technique just in this area. As you can see, it's going to take me quite some time, but As you can see, the mixture's quite dry at the moment. I've sort of got this layered effect with these colours, and I keep referring back, particularly remembering with photographs, is that your blacks really end up being black in a photograph, and you've really got to try and avoid that and stick with your palette, the palette that you would normally use to paint, to be able to do this. If you're just going to go black and light, you're just going to get a dead painting completely. So I'm just going to put these lovely slight edge down there. Time consuming, yes, and not everybody's going to paint like this, but the effects that you get are quite dramatic. I might wrap it up there. It's not a long day, and it's only just some of the techniques that I'll be taking you guys through while the series is on, and I hope it goes for many, many years to come. We have a huge amount of interest from literally countries all over the world. It's quite amazing what's happening to us, and it was unexpected. We were hoping that we'd have a great show for Australia, but we really do have a lot of international interest coming in from all over the world, even non-English speaking countries that want the series subtitled, which we think is just amazing. So we're spreading the word of right brain creativity to the people of the world, which I think is just marvellous. As I said, go out and tell your friends what we're doing. If you have any questions that you want to ask, you can always come into the website. We've got a number of artists in there these days that are in groups and events. A lot of people wanting to do workshops. We have a number of people that have inquired, and we will be organising those for the new year 2013. Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide. If you're in Melbourne or Adelaide and you want us to come there, we need groups of maybe 20 or 30 people for us to come down. Obviously, it's a lot of travel for us to get around, but as you can see, some pretty amazing artists that have come into the fold of Colour in Your Life, and many, many more to come. I mean, we're hoping eventually that we might be able to do this series in other countries throughout the world and bring the knowledge of all of those right brain people into the one spot. So as always, welcome. As always I say, I'm really glad that you were able to be here with us. And hopefully you enjoyed today. There'll be much more to come. But as I always say, remember, make sure you put some colour in your life. I'll see you next time, guys. Bye now.